Hello, and a good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening to you, the good and wonderful people of YouTube. Hope you are today, hope you're feeling grand, and also in your world. Welcome to the A&Q Wednesday, everybody. Let's get to question one. Actually, no, let's not get to question one straight away. Let's talk first. If you'd like to submit a question for A&Q Wednesday, the description box below has an email link. Email me there, your questions, and I will get to them when I can get to them. Yes, and also people of YouTube, today's intro jam, I filmed it using the Fender Deluxe Reverb amp that was behind me, the Tone Master, and I was using its DI. There was no mics on the amp, and I was using the SM57 cab emulation, mic emulation, or whatever you want to call it, thing on the back. People of YouTube, what do you think it sounded like? I really liked it. I had the treble too high, because I did the very clever thing of standing close to it and EQing it, which you don't do. It's stupid. And not moving away. And because it was humbuckers on the V, it was a little bit darker. So I thought, oh, I'll turn the treble up, and it made everything really bright. But I don't think it sounds bad. People of YouTube, let me know what you thought. I really like the sound of it. And that amp is just heaven to me. I love the Deluxe Reverb. It's so awesome, the Tone Master. Yeah. Anyway, enough on that. Let's get to question one today, shall we? Yes, let's go. Okay, where is it? It's over there. No, it's not. It's over there. No, it's not. It's down there. Okay, hello. Hey, question one. This question's wicked, people of YouTube, and I want you to answer as well. Give me your answers to this question. After you've heard it, of course. That'd be a bit weird if you gave me the answer before you had heard the question. That's creepy. Anyway, get to the question, Dave, you fool. Question one today is, in a parallel universe, the following guitarists, Noel Gallagher in 1994, Eddie Van Halen in 1981, Mike McCready in 1992, Dave Gilmour in, let's say, the Wall era, Dave Murray in 1985, and Slash in 1991, they have broken their arm at the zenith of their careers. You only have enough plutonium in the DeLorean to replace one of them. Which one would you replace and why? And I've removed John Frusciante as from the Californication tour because it'd be too obvious. Damn. In all fairness, though, I wouldn't want to replace John Frusciante on the Californication tour because that's my favourite playing of his. So, be that for what it may. Anyway, so out of those guitarists, Noel Gallagher, Eddie Van Halen, Mike McCready, Dave Gilmour, Dave Murray, and Slash, which one would I replace if I could? Mine would be Mike McCready in 1992. I would love to play with Pearl Jam in 92. And so, as much as it pained me to do it, being as Mike is one of my heroes, I would have to pick Mike McCready. And why? Because I just love that era of Pearl Jam. Their sound, their attitude, the way they would play and stuff like that, it'd be amazing to do. A very close second to that would probably be Dave Murray. But I don't think I could keep up with Iron Maiden because I don't think I'm clever enough as a guitar player to be able to do it. But, and again, none of these guitarists I really want to replace because I love them all. But I think if I had to pick one, I think I'd have to pick Mike McCready, just simply because of that era. That was the kind of the era that really kind of got me into Pearl Jam is the 10 era. The tour and the album. I just love that era. I love the way they were playing back then. I love the intensity of Eddie and all sorts of other bits and pieces. I think it's just immense at that point in time. So, out of those, how many is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, that's it. 6 guitarists. I would definitely have to pick Mike McCready. If Mike says, I can't do it, Dave, you have to go on. You have to do it. I can't. You have to replace me. I would go, yes, Mike. I can do that. Let's go. I think that would be my answer on that one, people tube. So, let me know your answer, people tube. So, out of Noel Gallagher in 1994, Eddie Van Halen in 1981, Mike McCready in 1992, Dave Gilmour, say the Wall era, Dave Murray in 1985, or Slash in 1991, which one would you, if they said, I've bust my arm, you're going to have to go on without me, who would it be who said that to you? Let us know in the comment section below. So, anyway, hope that's the question. That question's really cool. Definitely be Mike for me. Okay, so moving along. Question number 2, people of the tube today. Is you play a lot of Strats and Les Paul style guitars, but have you ever tried an SG, Gibson or Epiphone? Yeah. I've owned 4 SGs in my lifetime. musical lifetime. The first SG I owned was an Epiphone Les Paul, actually, SG. It was white one, 3 humbuckers, cream actually, white, 3 humbuckers. One, the bridge pickup had been replaced with a Jackson humbucker, and it was amazing. But the whole guitar never felt right. It was a great guitar, amazing guitar, but it never felt right. It was always a bit kind of iffy, and as a result of that, I eventually sold it. It just didn't. I couldn't get it to work with me at all. And it's a real shame because I love that SG and I love the way it sounds and I love SGs, but it wasn't having it, that one. The second SG I owned was an SG Junior, and I had this guitar for probably about a week before I sold it because it was just god awful, and it was an Epiphone, and it was a bolt-on neck with a single P90 pickup, and the P90 was great, but the whole guitar itself it didn't talk to me at all. It was just like there was a blank there. Just nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was like bashing it against a brick wall. There was literally nothing in that guitar that made me go, ah! It was just one of those things. The pickup was good, but eventually I flogged it. I think I've got a picture of it somewhere, but I don't know where. But it was just a red Epiphone SG, dot inlays on the fretboard. I bought it from Cash Converters in Louth, actually. It was really, really cheap. I think it was only like 60 quid or something like that at the time. But I literally had that for about a week until I sold it, and it just didn't work. The third SG I owned was a black vintage SG, and I ended up selling that to one of my dad's workmates because, again, the same thing. As much as I loved the guitar, it just didn't. It didn't sit. It didn't. It spoke to me. It spoke to me on a very high level, and I actually demoed that SG, people at Tube. It's a black SG, and I modded the pickups in it. It had a single coil kind of humbucker P90, P100 thing in the neck, and it had a humbucker in the bridge, and it was an amazing, amazing sounding SG, but it just felt wrong. I could play it really well, but it spoke to me, but it just didn't feel right. It was really kind of frustrating, to be perfectly honest with you. It was great, but it just didn't work out, sadly. Them's the breaks, so to say. Trying to think, if there's anything else to say about that. But there is a video on that SG, people of YouTube. I don't know what it's called. I think it's just called Vintage SG. I don't know. But funny enough, it's one of my most watched videos, actually. The jamming that people seem to seem to really like that one, which is really, really cool, and I like that. But unfortunately, like I say, I eventually sold that. Well, I didn't sell it. I gave it away. Eventually, I kind of gave it to one of my dad's workmates because he wanted to learn to play guitar, and he had quite big hands, and SG would work for him. And I just wasn't connecting on it. I just wasn't playing it, and I just thought, I'll give it away then. And it's a great guitar. And the thing is, I could always kind of like borrow it back if I need to. It's not like I don't know the guy who's got it, but I don't really have any desire to do that. The fourth SG, you never saw, people of the Tube. I had a red vintage SG that literally was a great guitar, but again, never connected, and I literally had no desire to do a video on it, sadly, because it just didn't click, and that really is gutting. And it's really annoying because I really love SGs, and I'd really like an SG, but I've never played one that I just get on, that I get on 100% and go, that's the one. It's a real shame. It's a real pig because I'd really like to be able to just kind of go, yeah, there it is. But it's just it didn't work, and it's very, very, very annoying. But I love SGs. Back in old hat, I demoed quite a lot of old SGs as well, vintage SGs from the 70s and the 60s. I remember there was one SG that was particularly. There was loads of SGs we had that were actually particularly amazing, but I remember one had 3 humbuckers. That was a great one. There was another one which was amazing. We had a couple of Firebrands, but they weren't very good. The Firebrand SGs were a bit naff. They sounded a bit meh. Trying to think if there's any others I've played. I mean, I played a lot of vintage ones at Old Hat. I really did. I played a lot of juniors and stuff like that as well, SG juniors and stuff. When I was in Paris at Matt's Guitar Shop, I played Robin Ford's SG, and that was insanely good. And I also played Billy Gibbons' weird Clockwork SG, and that was one of the best guitars I played that day for feel and sound. was insanely good, that SG. Absolutely amazing. I'd be terrified about the clockwork mechanism eating my hair, but it was an amazing SG. It actually was better than Robin Ford's. Robin Ford's SG was nice, and I forget which year that was, but Billy Gibbons' SG was amazing. It really was. But no, I mean, I love SGs. I just don't have one and I never have had one that speaks to me. And as much as that pains me to say that, because like I say, I love them, but I can't find one that actually works for me. The search continues, people of the tube, for that one, the elusive SG. One day, I know I'll find one, but until then, I am SG-less. Which is a real shame, because I love SGs. I love the way they sound, I love the way they feel. A good one. It's just that certain guitars connect and certain ones don't. And until you find that one that goes, you kind of on your own, so to say. Anyway, I hope that's not a question anyway, people too. So I will move on to the next question. Question 3 now. Question 3 today is... this is an interesting one. I'm not really sure how to answer this one, but this is question 3. I was wondering if you have ever considered touring around the colleges in the UK or further afield. Yeah, I mean, that thought's crossed my mind, but I don't think the infrastructure's there for that anymore. I know for a fact, back in the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s, you get university tours. I mean, I've got a CD of Thin Lizzy doing a university tour where they just play universities, and they're playing Derby Uni. And there's some other footage as well. Like you can find a video online of the Police playing Rock Goes to College, which was like a TV series of live concerts where bands would go and play colleges. But I don't think universities or colleges do that anymore. If they do, let me know in the comment section below, people of Tube. And also another thing is trying to get gigs in this day and age, being an unsigned, unknown band, is nigh impossible. It's almost impossible for an unknown band like the Trio. I mean, we want to gig, we want to tour, we want to go everywhere, but it's really difficult. It's not just pick up the phone and ring and get a gig anymore, unfortunately. Well, it never was. But even now, even more so now, it's harder than ever to get gigs around the place. It really is. Again, especially for an unknown, unsigned band like the Dave Simpson Trio. It ain't going to get very far, on word alone. That one isn't, sadly, as much as that pains me to say that. It's really difficult. I mean, I would love to do it. It'd be amazing to do it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that'd be so cool to do. But the options are slim. If any. It's kind of slim to none, really. Because again, I don't think universities do that anymore. I don't think they put on like touring band kind of like nights where you can go from one university to another and so on and so forth. I don't think they do that anymore. I don't think the infrastructure's there for that anymore, and especially not at this point in time. And with the new year approaching, I mean, I've a distinct impression that lockdown number 3, the Revenge, or what lockdown is it now? Probably 679 or whatever it is on the horizon again. So I think everything's just going to get, shot to ribbons again in the new year, and everyone's just going to get back in your houses, which is not good for your health. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that one. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to do that. It'd be an amazing thing to do. But again, unsigned band, unknown band. That's the fundamental problem that we have is, no one's going to book us. Like I said, I mean, I've said it before, people of Tube. I sent out 20 emails this year to venues, and I never heard back from any of them. Well, apart from the venues we knew, and they're ones we've played. Other than that, most of them don't want to know. They don't care. They don't want to know who you are. They don't give a monkeys. So, it's a bit of a pig, people of Tube, to be perfectly honest with you. It really is. I don't really know. But we would love to do that. I mean, as a band, I mean, that's all we want to do. We want to gig and we want to play out and about and tour and that kind of thing. But there's just not the opportunities to do that, unless you've got bucket tons of money, and we don't, sadly, even between us. If we pulled our thing, we wouldn't be able to do it. Because touring isn't as lucrative as it used to be, especially kind of like, album sales and stuff like that going like, down and down and down in the music industry. albums aren't a thing anymore, so people aren't buying. Not many people are buying albums for £10 plus anymore, which helps fund the band to do more stuff. They're not doing that anymore. It's a case of, in this day and age, of kind of like people buying singles on Spotify or iTunes for nothing, basically, and nothing goes to the artist, so which means they can't do anything. It's a mess, personally, people. It really is. It's a total and utter mess. And I don't like any of it, and I don't like the way the industry is right now. I mean, it's more cutthroat and nasty than it ever has been. There's no opportunities for unsigned bands. There's no opportunities for alternative bands like the Trio. We're a blues rock band, but we're kind of heavy blues rock stuff. Unless somebody came forward and says, "Well, I'm going to fund you and be your manager," the odds on us actually being able to do these kind of things are very, very slim. Doesn't mean we're not going to try. But it's not a case of just picking up the phone and saying, we want to come and play your place, and they say, yeah, come along on this date and play. It's really hard to get gigs. It's really difficult. And like I say, you it's almost like beating your head against a brick wall most of the time, because you send out emails and CDs and contact information and promo vids and all this kind of stuff. And most of the time you hear absolutely nothing back. It's massive. It makes you massively kind of like depressed and despondent and jaded with the whole thing of just thinking, well, maybe I'm just not supposed to be doing that then, and that's really annoying, because, like I say, the Trio, I mean, we really want to tour, we really want to play to all you lot and everywhere, but without backing, forget it. Forget it. It ain't gonna happen. If you don't have the dough, it's a no. That was really cheesy. But that is literally the way it is. It's not, as much as it pays to pay, it is a case of, it's not as simple as just literally booking a gig and going on tour. It's not like that anymore. Again, if you don't have the infrastructure there in the first place to support this, forget it. It's not going anywhere. It's really not. As naff as that is. It really is. Yeah. I mean, the gigging infrastructure of the UK is very messy right now, and again, if you're not well known by now, the odds are, very much against you. They're not in your favour, if you will. And again, unless you've got money and backing, which again the Trio don't, it's difficult. It's really difficult, because a lot of people said, well, surely the amount of subscribers on YouTube should account for that. It's like, yeah, but they don't. Venues don't take that into consideration. They don't care. They want to know if people are going to come in and see. And they don't go by that. It's weird. They're very kind of like insular, a lot of venues these days, because they're deciding like, well, I don't know you, so no, I'm not booking you. It's difficult, people do. It's really difficult, and it's frustrating for bands like the Trio, and it's exhausting personally. It really is, because you're just like, oh god, I can't do this. It's just it makes you very, very despondent. It really does. But if the opportunity arose, we would be seizing it with both hands and not letting go. If the Trio got offered loads of gigs, we'd be going, yes, we're doing them all. As long as it's kind of obviously, financially viable. We can't be doing everything for free because we need to live. So we can't just be going, yeah, we'll do everything for free. That's not the way it is. It comes back down to that. I always say this to people because it's really important to know this. As a gigging musician, you need to know your worth, and you need to go kind of like, it's the Joker line from The Dark Knight. I mean, it's a bit cheesy to say it, but it's that whole line that Heath Ledger says of like, if you're good at something, don't do it for free. They'll never do it for free. And that's the point, is like, don't go out there selling yourself short just because. You really need to be, you need to know your worth, and you need to go, well, no, we're better than this. Why are we doing that? We need to live. We're human beings. We've got bills to pay. We've got rent to pay. We need to buy food. We need to buy drink. We need to travel. We need to buy gear. If something breaks, we need to insure our stuff. We need all this stuff. We need to be aware of all that, so it needs to be viable. You can't just be like, oh yeah, we'll just do it for free, because you're not gonna make a living out of it doing it like that, And You know, as much as money isn't evil, and I can't stand talking about it, you do need it to do this. You know, you really do. And in this day and age, you need more than you think you need. And that's a problem for a lot of bands, because a lot of bands are like the Trio in the fact of, we don't have that kind of money. No, long gone are the days of you've been signed to a record company for 3 album deals and they give you massive advances and they'll spend loads of money to get you on these world tours or European tours or US tours with a well-known band to bring up your profile. Long gone are those days are gone. You know, that is not going to happen. No one's going to knock on the door tomorrow and ask the Trio to come on tour with Joe Bonamassa. That's not going to happen. You know, unless you've got a lot of money to buy yourself onto them, which we don't. You know, labels used to do that for you. Now these days they don't, because it doesn't work that way. It's all about how they can get the most money and keep the most money, and it's a nightmare. It really is. Again, for unsigned bands, it's killing them. It really is. It's killing us. You know, it's killing. There's no scene. There's no. It's just hard work. It's really hard work. And again, you know, it's if you're an unknown, unsigned bands like the Trio and like other bands out there, I'm sure a lot of us are in them. You know, you can attest to this, how difficult it is. You know, it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible. Not impossible, but almost. You know, there's always a way, but finding that way is hard work. And also, not only is it hard work, but also the fact of 2% will actually find it if you're lucky. If you're lucky. Anyway, but would we consider touring the colleges around the UK and further afield? Definitely, if we could. We'd do it tomorrow if we could. We'd leave tomorrow if that was a reality and we could actually do it, and it could be like, you know, some kind of a successful kind of tour and also financially viable. We would do it in an instant. But there's a lot of things we have to consider. You know, we've all got bills to pay for. We've got things to pay for. You know, we can't just be kind of going, oh, let's go and do it for free and disappear for 2 months and then come back with no money, having spent everything and emptied our bank accounts. It's not going to happen. You know, we need to think about that. You know, we don't have anybody behind us. You know, we don't have a record label. We don't have people, you know, throwing money at us. You know, it's our money we'd have to sell, and we don't have a lot of it, so we've got to be careful. Anyway, I hope that's answered your question for what it was. I mean, I know that's not the best answer in the world. It was a long-winded answer, but I like my tangents. I like a tangent again. Anyway, but yeah, it's very, very difficult. It really is. I wish it was a lot easier, but it isn't. It really isn't. It's a piglet, to say the least, people achieve. It really is. Anyway, going to move on to question 4, because I could talk about that all day. I'm going to go. That's really rude. Oh! Sorry, everybody. I do apologise. Okay, so anyway. So, question 4 today, final question of the day, people tube, is what's the best process for shaping your overall tone? Is it pedals or amp? You know, or whatever you're using. I would say your amp. I mean, your amp's EQ is really important to kind of like the overall tonality of your rig. You know, because I mean, the thing is, when I get a new amplifier, whatever it is, you know, I don't reset my pedals to the amp. I set the amp to the pedals, because I go everywhere with my pedal board. Like, I don't really care what amp I have to plug into, because as long as I've got my pedal board, I couldn't give a monkey's what it is. You know, because I've got my sound in the pedals. You know, that's why I've always done it. You know, the amp is just there as an amplifier. It's not a tone shaper. It's not there for me to 100% rely on for all my sounds. Excuse me. I use my pedals for that. You know, that's why I have the golden plexi on all the time. That's why, you know, my pedals are set a certain way. So when I get a new amp, what I do is I plug my pedal board into it, and I will literally just go after the sound of the sound I know my pedals make, and I'll dial the amp in to my pedals. I never have ever dialed in pedals to an amp. I dial in, you know, because the pedals I've had, I'm still using now. I've had since like 2008, 9, you know, or is it before that? Way before that, 2006, 7. Sorry, should I say? And I know what I want out of the pedals, and I know what I want. I can hear the sound I want, so I use the amp. So what I would do is, I mean, I would always just kind of like what I did. Okay, let's start there. I'm getting a bit confused. So, pull it back in, Dave. So this is how I dial in stuff to get my sound that I like. So I have my number one Marshall MG, okay, and I know that's my sound. You know, that amp, the way it's set up on its EQ, combined with my pedal board, is the sound I want, hands down. No alternatives. That's what I want. I like consistency. I know a lot of people like differing in sounds and stuff like that, but I don't. I like consistency. And so I have dialed all my pedals in to that amp on that EQ. Okay? So all my pedals are dialed into my number one MG, the Fish, right? So that's what they are. They don't stray from there. So that's what they are. I don't. Once they're done, that's it. I don't touch the dials. They stay where they are on the pedal board, and that's the way it is. Unless it's something like a delay, or like say the Mel 9, something that I kind of like I can tweak on the fly that I just kind of want a bit more of or a bit less of. But distortion wise and core tone doesn't change. Okay, so that's all dialed in to a Marshall MG. So from that point onwards, anything I plug my board into, I will dial in to the same sound. Okay, again, consistency, I like it. So whether it be a CR120, the Fender here, or the Super Reverb, or whatever, you know, whatever amp I've got, the whatever, I can't think of any, Super Crush, whatever. I will then dial the amp into my pedal board. I don't do it the other way around. I don't set the amp up to sound good and then control my pedals, then change my pedals. I just set the amp to sound the way the pedals want it to be. And I find certain EQs on amps are better than others. Certain ones are more responsive than others. Some are a bit too naff. I remember plugging into a Marshall TSL once, the triple super lead, and that thing, I don't particularly like the sound I got out of it. It was a gig and it was backline supplied and it was a bit. I mean, I didn't mind it. I basically just did the usual thing, the Dave Simpson setting, where I turned all the treble off, all the middle off, and turn the bass either all the way up or off, depending on what the amp responded. I think the TSL turned it all the way to 10, and I had the gain really low, and I had the volume really high. And that worked out really well. And the same thing, where I remember another gig we did with Duke's Deluder, where we turned up to the gig and it was backline supplied and there was a high watt. And that was an amazing amp. I really liked that one. I forget exactly what it was. I think it was one of those max watt heads, and it's solid state, so I was well happy. And that same thing happened with that. I just plugged into it and just kind of dialed in the amp to my pedals. I didn't touch the pedals to compensate. I just dialed it in. Another gig we did where we played, and there was a Victory amp. I forget what the Victory amp was. Oh, the Duchess? Is that one? I don't know. It was white. It was the one that it's kind of like I think it's like a clean platform. It's not. It's like a. I don't know. I don't think it's supposed to be like a distortion amp or anything like that. But that's what I did there. I just shoved my pedal board on stage, went back to the amp, and shaped the tone that I want from the amp. So when it comes to best overall kind of thing to shape your tone is kind of like set your amp kind of. My amps are always set quite neutral. You know, I have them quite flat, but I use overdrive channels most of the time, and I'm not using it in the deluxe because it doesn't have one unless it's cranked. But most of the time with amps like my CR120 or my Marshall MGs, I will tend to use the overdrive channels because I like that more. Boss Guitar, I use the acoustic channel. That does seem to work best. And the Fenders, obviously, it's just one channel. So, and the same thing with my Plexi, it's just one channel. But I would say you kind of want to set your amp kind of like neutral, but so it's like a clean tone you kind of like, and then set your pedals to it, and then just kind of like go from there. So every time you get a new amp, just dial it into the sound you already had. I feel I'm quite lucky in the fact I have the Fish, in the fact that's my number one amp. You know, I mean, as soon as I found that amp, that was me sorted. You know, and to me, that's me. That Marshall MG, that's my favourite amp of all time. It's my number one amp of all time, should I say? And because that's the sound I really wanted, and that's the sound I kind of like have grown up with and just loving. when I get a new amp, like the Fender, for instance, like I just dial in my pedal board, dial in the amp to the pedal board. So, and I don't think, like, you know, leaving pedals where they are once you've got them to sound the way you want for a certain amp. If you go to another amp, dial the amp into them. Don't do it the other way around, unless totally necessary, which invariably isn't necessary. I think I've only altered my pedals. I can't even think when I've altered my pedals, people with YouTube, for any amp I've plugged into. Oh, I tell you, like, I had to do lower the bass on the Victory, the Duchess amp. When we did that gig with the trio and I was going through the Victory, I had to bring down the bass because for some reason I was getting massive load of bass from it. And but luckily, because I've got a graphic EQ thing in the Zoom, I was able to go in there and literally just dial it down and get rid of this low end. Other than that, I've never done it. That is the only time I can think I've actually altered my pedal board with backline supplied. Other than that, like I said, I dial the amp to the pedals. So yeah, anyway, I hope that makes some kind of sense. I know that was a lot of waffle, people tube. I don't know if that made any sense whatsoever, but hopefully it did. As usual, the fear is near. But like I say, I mean, I have that. The MG is like my perfect amp. It sounds the way I want it to sound, bar none. You know, and I always try and get my amps to sound like that. It's like Mr. White. Every guitar I get, no matter what it is, you know, even the V here, if it, you know, obviously this isn't going to sound like Mr. White because Mr. White's a Strat, this is a flying V with humbuckers. But if I don't feel and communicate to me on that level, I'm not interested. You know, this one does, the acoustic up there does, the Ernie Ball does there. And if it doesn't communicate like Mr. White does to me, I'm not interested. You know, that's why the guitars I've got all have that. You know, and if I've got a guitar that doesn't do that, I invariably either don't have it for very long or whatever, you know, or I alter it to make it do it. But invariably, there's no point altering your guitar. If it doesn't talk to you now, it never will, you know. So it's kind of difficult. But it's as much in the same way as like that MG is like Mr. White, in the fact of that's what I gauge all other amplifiers by. Can I plug into this amp and get that sound? Yes, I can. Cool, I love this amp. No, I can't. I'm not interested. You know, it is literally like that. But in all fairness, mainly most of the time, because I'm using pedals for tone, it doesn't really matter what the amp is, and it's just foolproof in that way. I can go anywhere as long as, and play through any amp. As long as I've got my pedal board, it doesn't matter what I plug into because my tone comes from pedals. I love that so much more than relying on an amplifier for my clean tone, distortion tone, mass distortion tone, or anything like that. I like just relying on pedals. And again, another thing about kind of relying on kind of pedals that are kind of fairly cheap as well is the fact that you can go anywhere in the world and find a Boss pedal. You know, you can go anywhere in the world and find like pedals that kind of like work on that level, and I like that a lot. It's Steve Vai thinks the same way, and that made me really happy when I found out Steve Vai thought the same way. So I was like, yay! And I've always done that, people with you. I've done that forever, just relied on my pedals. Probably since like 2004. I've done that since. Yeah, I have. 2004. That would have been the first time I fully went yes. Because I'll tell you why. I'll tell you a story, people with YouTube. Here you go. This is why I started relying on pedals for tone instead of relying on an amp for tone. So at that point in time, I was using my Marshall MG. I just got it, and I was using it for clean and overdrive, not distortion. Kind of an overdrive kind of thing. And that's what I had. I was using that with a foot switch, and I was using it for also delay. And I didn't have much on my pedal board apart from a foot switcher and stuff like that. And I had my trusty Zoom pedal and stuff like that. Anyway, we went to do a gig in Scunthorpe in the band I was in at the time, my first ever band. And we turned up, and the amp was an amp I don't remember what it is. I don't remember what it was, should I say. And I was out of my depth with it. And also, I remember it just had one channel, so I couldn't channel switch to distortion. I remember doing the whole gig on this clean channel, and my pedals, well, I didn't have any pedals for distortion. Nothing worked, put it that way. Everything went wrong, and it just sounded bad, and I hated it, and I couldn't feel it. And it dawned on me then, I was thinking, well, if I use pedals to get that sound, and just use one channel on my amp, and just dial everything into that one channel, then I'll never have that problem. And it took me a while to refine that. It took me about another year to get that kind of all settled in and make it kind of make sense and make it work. And it wasn't really until mid 2005-ish I got it dialed in on the Fish and got it, that's it. And then from that point on, I would go around trying my pedal board through different amps, and no matter what I did, I could always find my sound from that point on, and that's never changed. Because again, I'm relying just solely on pedals for that sound. I'm not relying on the amplifier. It's just literally there to kick out the sound, the amp is. So yeah. So be that what it may, PeopleTube. That's how I ended up at that conclusion. It was just through basically a bad live experience. And failing, basically, again, failure is good. It teaches you where to go. It's amazing. I love failing at things because you invariably learn something, and I think that's always really important. But that's why I ended up doing that. And also that gig as well, PeopleTube, I only took one guitar. I took Mr. White, and at that point in time, it still had a synchronized tremolo because I'd only just bought it. I didn't understand synchronized tremolo. I didn't understand you could wind the claw screws in the back and get rid of that. So we were playing away, and I broke my high E string. And obviously, when you break a string with a floating trem, forget your tuning; it's gone. And I had no spare guitar, so I was like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." And I'm trying to retune this guitar, and Mr. White, and he won't go back in tune because all the tension's gone squiffy. And bearing in mind, I'm through an amp, can't even work as well, so it's an absolute nightmare. And it was from that point on, I was like, right, I'm always bringing two guitars. I'm going to dial in my pedal board to this and the other, so I don't have to worry about kind of what amp I plug into. And it was just those things, really. So now I'm at a point where I always go to a gig with 2 or 3 guitars, depending. I go to the trio gig with 3 because we play in standard tuning and E-flat tuning, and I like to have a spare for each of those, just in case. But I could do the whole gig with just 2 if I wanted to. I could do the whole gig with 1 if I needed to, if I could, just retune quick enough. But invariably, tuning to E-flat and then tuning back to E, there's all sorts of issues, and it's not really worth it. But spares are really important. Knowing your setup is really important. Knowing how to kind of like dial your sound is important as well. And again, I think being consistent with sound, knowing what sound you want is always key. Kind of like dialing it and kind of like being a bit of a crapshoot. It's kind of like really hard work, kind of going, well, I don't really know what I want today. My mind's always gone, to me, it's always like, that's the sound I want. I know what I want. I know a lot of people don't like that, but that's the way I think about it. That's the way I feel about it, if that makes any sense. So anyway, PeopleTube. I'm going to leave it there because I could talk about that all day as well, and I'm not going to. So I'm going to stop there and let you get on with what you have to do today or tonight or this afternoon. And anyway, if you like the videos I do here, PeopleTube, now we're back to long format. Please consider becoming a patron at Patreon. Link to that is in the description box below. Excuse me. In the description box below as well, there's also a link to the Dave from Trio merch store thing on Teespring, and there's also a link to my Bandcamp, where you can see all sorts of different albums and music that I've done, which I'll be adding to soon. We have 2 EPs in the works here. Anyway, other than that, and also the link to submit questions in the description box below as well. So anyway, thank you very much indeed for watching PeopleTube. I'll see you again on Friday for another vid. Have a great one until then. Have a great morning, afternoon, and good evening. And I hope there was something in this video that was informative. The fear is near, always. Thank you very much. Goodbye now.